So there's been a lot of debate, right, about Twitter and all these companies banning Trump, right? So you have some people saying that, well, it's within their rights. It's well within their right to do so because they're a private company, and also he violated their terms of service. Once again, we just went through that whole argument because if you want to talk about glorification of violence, which is what Twitter cited as Trump having breached, well, he's done that a million times. And apparently when he does it to foreigners and people of color, no one cares because we're not human, apparently. So that's one thing. Now, the second thing is, cheering on censorship, especially as a leftist position, and also saying that, oh, well, Twitter is a private company. That's an interesting thing to hear from a leftist advocating for, corporate monopolization of speech and so forth. That's an interesting position to say that, oh, well, private companies can do whatever they like. Again, the American left is always peculiar. Nonetheless, I just want to show you something, right? Because when Joe Biden is talking about, the Obama administration sanctions against Iran are the most comprehensive that Iran has ever faced. And, sanctions kill people when you can't get medicine, when you're not allowed to import repair parts, when they, screw over your banking sector. Again, let's not mince words here. Donald Trump, the maximum pressure campaign, Secretary Pompeo coming on Twitter, all of them bragging about how they're screwing over Venezuela, Syria, Iran with their sanctions and murdering people by extension. That's also glorification of violence, and Twitter didn't have a problem with that. So my point here is that American politicians constantly glorify violence. America is a violent nation, okay? And the irony as well about the Capitol building, I mean, AOC and Ilhan Omar and all these politicians say, pearl clutching, like, oh my God, they attacked our democracy. You don't even have a fucking democracy. What democracy? What democracy? Is that democracy when, you send off scores of young black men to jail with the crime bill, right? Is that democracy? Huh? Violating your own constitution, spying on people, that's democracy. Voter suppression, that's democracy. Fuck out of here. And they act like that building is a monastery. Like, you can criticize what happened without also acting like it's some kind of sanctuary of peace. No, that building is a vile, disgusting institution. It's an imperialist institution. That's the source of all evil. I mean, not just in America, but across the fucking planet. I mean, seriously, calm down. Yeah, you don't have to go to an extreme, but they're doing that so they can have this authoritarian clampdown. Anyway, my point over here. All right, you want to come around and tell me that Twitter is a private company and they can do whatever they like? Are you sure about that? Are you sure? Because last time I checked, and again, it's not just Twitter. We're not just talking about Twitter here because Trump has been deplatformed from YouTube, even Shopify, Google, their monetary services as well, Snapchat, Instagram, you name it. They've all disabled his accounts, everything. So the argument here is that, oh, well, they can do whatever they like because they're private companies. You're sure about that? They're private companies, really? It seems to me a lot of people are forgetting that these companies are one and the same with the government. When you're participating in a mass surveillance program and giving backdoor access to the National Security Agency, to the NSA and other intelligence agencies, you're not a private company anymore, right? I mean, this is like saying, well, man, you can't blame IBM for participating in the Holocaust or Hugo Boss making uniforms for the Nazis. They're just private companies. No, these companies, the big tech companies, are an extension. They are an arm of the national security state. They're one and the same. Like why would you kid yourself? Like, who the fuck are you lying to? Were you not paying attention to what Glenn Greenwald and Edward Snowden worked on? Has your head been up your ass for the last 7 years? Where have you been? Where have you been? How could you say such a dumb thing? Like, again, even it's like the fact that you would assume they have your interests at heart, being a private company, being capitalists, is unbelievable, specifically when their whole business model is to steal your data, to mine your data and sell it. So, I mean, the last thing that they have on their mind is, you know, your best interest. That's number one. But then to deny, to completely omit and forget that these companies have been complicit for decades now with the national security state, with the deep state, whatever you would like to call it, the national security blob, the government, in breaking, violating your constitutional rights, your civil liberties, and doing it also to people all across the globe, right? Not just Americans. I mean, you're deluding yourself here. You're really deluding yourself. Again, I can't believe I am doing this. You know, I can't believe you people have not been paying attention. But yes, the PRISM program is real, right? Go back, go read the brilliant work that Glenn did. Go back, go read the Vault 7 stuff by WikiLeaks. I mean, these companies are literally serving your data on a silver platter. I mean, they have, I think, who was it? AT&T? They have like, not just a back door, a literal back door. They had a whole room, windowless, for, you know, the NSA to come in and just plug into their servers and take whatever they want. That's not a private company. That's not a private company anymore. Now, nonetheless, my other point here is that what makes you so sure that they're going to stop at Trump? Like, yeah, you know, no one is going to miss Trump. I think that's quite evident. What makes you think, though, that they're going to stop there? I mean, we saw already just before the election with the Hunter Biden article, or story rather, how they blocked the New York Post article and they locked their Twitter account, right? So, I mean, journalists, the media class particularly, should be outraged about this. I mean, could you imagine you're publishing a story on Trump about, I don't know, Jared Kushner, which, oddly enough, I did not see a lot of people covering his Zionist, you know, the favors that he did for his Zionist buddies. Yeah. Doing adversarial journalism is not good for everyone's YouTube channel, is it? So a lot of people ignored that. But anyway, could you imagine you want to post an article about Jared Kushner and then Twitter blocks your account? You would lose your fucking shit. You would lose it. Right? You would lose it. Moreover, last year, well, I keep saying last year, but it's 2021 now, so it's technically not last year anymore. This is in 2019, right? Do you remember when Twitter banned all these pro-Venezuelan accounts, right? Do you remember that? Do you remember when Facebook got rid of Telesur, the channel? Do you remember when Google, YouTube banned Press TV several times? Do you remember when WikiLeaks got their PayPal accounts frozen because they challenged US hegemony? Because, you know, I mean, how can you look at this and then tell me that big tech is on the side of leftists and that you know, we're not at risk or in danger? They've been doing this stuff for over a decade now. How can you say that? This is insane. This is insanity. This has nothing to do with Trump. I could be saying the same shit 5 years ago and it would still be correct. You should not, you know, put your entire trust and faith in these billionaires in Silicon Valley that we know for a fucking fact, are in cahoots, are in bed with the government, with the national security state. Have people lost their goddamn minds? This is how severe Trump derangement syndrome is. Like, they're willing to ignore reality and they're willing to shoot themselves in the foot because they think that, oh, okay, you know, Orange Cheeto Man is gone and his mean tweets are gone. No, this is an issue that has been around for a long time. Do you understand? And I'm trying to remind you of that. And it doesn't stop there. Like, they just banned also again, one second. I have so many tabs open. So here we go. Look, they just banned Ron Paul, his Facebook page. With no, he writes on Twitter, with no explanation other than repeatedly going against our community standards. Facebook has blocked me from managing my page. Ron Paul? I mean, look, man, you want to tell me Trump is polarizing? I'll give you that. Yeah, you want to tell me he's a racist piece of shit? 100%. You want to tell me Trump is a warmonger and he incites violence? Sure. But Ron Paul, what the fuck did Ron Paul do? I mean, he's not exactly the most controversial figure, is he? This is absurd. So, and as I showed you, they're going after all alternative outlets, Telesur, Press TV, anyone. Oh, this is so stupid. And another thing which you guys are forgetting. Oh, so once again, you want to come here and tell me that Twitter is a private company? You want to come here and tell me Facebook, all of these big tech companies are private? Okay, let's put that to the test. Can you explain to me why back in 2009, Twitter rescheduled their maintenance in order to keep protests in Iran going? And why did they do this? Hold on, where's the, there we go. Social networking service Twitter delayed a planned upgrade to avoid cutting daytime service to Iranians who have been using it to coordinate protests against a disputed presidential election. How weird that's like the same theme as well. Isn't that weird? Right? Isn't that odd? And I wonder why they did that. I wonder why they did that. Because the US State Department asked them to. The US State Department contacted Twitter and told them, don't fucking touch the website. Keep the service up so people in Iran can keep organizing to potentially overthrow the government. Now, again, whether you support US coups in other countries or not, you cannot come here and then tell me that this is a private company that is completely separate from the US government. And moreover, I find the irony is staggering that on the same issue, disputing the results of an election, just like Trump is claiming, right? Oh, the election is fraudulent, blah, blah, blah. They let that happen as long as it's in Iran. So if you dispute the results of the election in the US, like as Trump did, right? They deplatform you. But if you do that in Iran, it's okay. Where's the consistency here? It's not about with what you agree or what you believe. Where's the consistency? Obviously, there's some bullshit going on here, right? That's not a private company. Big tech, man, stop deluding yourself. I mean, it's not like I'm just relying on like one article from 2009 to make my point. Dude, the fucking revelations by Snowden, the PRISM program. I mean, we have a treasure trove of data. That guy is living in Russia now. He's exiled practically from going back ever to the United States because he made a sacrifice to reveal this information to you, and you're going to sit there and just spit on it? Don't be silly, man. Stop kidding yourself. It doesn't got nothing to do with Trump. I could have made this point 10 years ago. I could have made this point 5 years ago. Got nothing to do with Trump. And again, with WikiLeaks, these companies serve the interests of the United States government and the national security state. And if you think otherwise, man, I don't even know what to tell you. Not, again, this is not to mention the fact that as a leftist, I'm absolutely astounded that, you know, people are cheering on this kind of censorship. You know, it's like, again, I understand it. No one likes Trump. Yeah, okay, whatever. We get that. We're not debating that. But you should be afraid, given what I've just shown you, how WikiLeaks, how, you know, Iranian, Venezuelan, Latin American adversarial figures to the U.S. are targeted by these companies, and they will work at the behest of the U.S. And it's really concerning. One second. I got to switch tabs over here. It's really concerning when you see progressives cheering this on, so-called progressives, right? Twitter, why is Donald Trump still out here tweeting after inciting a fascist mob? Says Jamal Bowman. Okay, Jamal. I agree with you, okay? I agree with you. Where the fuck were you when the U.S. was supporting fascist mobs in Bolivia to overthrow Evo Morales? Where were you? If you're so concerned about, you know, the president and his cabinet inciting and supporting fascist mobs, it doesn't count when it happens in Bolivia? No? It's okay to support, you know, jihadists in Syria? They can't even make their minds up, right? And AOC as well saying, oh, what are Apple and Google Play doing about this? So this is about Parlay, I believe, which we'll get to in a second. Right? So I'm just closing out tabs because I got too much open. Okay. So AOC was basically calling for Apple and Google to ban Parlay from their store. I keep hearing people calling it Parler. No, it's Parlay, from French parler, which means to talk, but it's even a word in English, parlay. It's from French. Now, look, man. I mean, I never heard of the app until a few days ago, right? But it's completely staggering how they say, like, okay, we don't tolerate Donald Trump over here, like Twitter, Facebook. This is a private company. Go elsewhere. And then they come up with this other app, Parlay, and then they're like, oh, no competition. Get off our app store now. Like, do you see how they're not just pushing away anyone they don't like, but on top of it, cornering the market, monopolizing the market? I mean, dude, again, fuck Donald Trump, but this is not about him. This is an issue that we've seen on the left. We've seen them demonetize entire channels, like you saw happen with me when I was covering Israel the week of that annexation plan that was supposed to go ahead in July. All of a sudden, my fucking channel gets demonetized for what exactly? You know, we've seen people on Twitter, leftists like Venezuela analysis, right? Susie 3D, I think is her Twitter handle. Like, they're going after leftists, man. And what the hell's Ron Paul done exactly? Like, what is that? Don't think for 1 second they will stop at Trump. This is my point to you. And again, going back to what I said initially, these are not private companies, man. When they're working with the NSA, when they're working on the behalf of the government, they are not private companies. Stop being so fucking dumb and you know, delusional about it, right? And I would love to see some consistency from all the people who are saying that what Donald Trump and his supporters, incitement to violence and glorifying violence is not allowed. I would love you to say that about my country, about what, you know, has happened in Syria. I would love for you to say that about what's happened in Bolivia. I would love for you to say that about what's happened in Venezuela. I would love for you to say that about Iran, Afghanistan. Where is it? Why aren't you fighting white supremacy and violence and fascism and glorification of violence when Trump was doing it in other places, or when your colleagues were doing it, right? It's okay for Joe Biden to say he's gonna, you know, slap Iran with sanctions. Sanctions kill people. They murder civilians. Children starve to death. They don't get medicine. That's not a glorification of violence. That's not a threat. Like, what is wrong with you? Why this double standard? Why the double standard? It's because they're complicit. They would do the same thing. And another point that I would like to raise, you hear this argument about like, you're not allowed to yell fire in a crowded theater, right? Like basically that there's a limit to free speech. Okay, departing from your logic, why is it okay then for Donald Trump and his cabinet to lie about chemical gas attacks in Syria and then bomb Syria? Again, this was in April 2018 in Damascus when I was calling up my cousins to find out if they're okay. Why is it okay for the New York Times to lie about that? Look at this. Talking about chlorine bombs and making a whole 3D model. They've never retracted that story. Why is it okay for the New York Times to incite and push for intervention and bombing of other countries? Why was it okay for them and the Washington Post to lie about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq? By your logic, they should also be deplatformed. The war in Iraq has killed and displaced millions. I mean, this is astronomically worse than what took place at the Capitol. Astronomically worse. Joe Biden is responsible for that. He lied about weapons of mass destruction. He helped start that war. And I saw AOC and Nancy Pelosi and all of these progressives help elect him. Why aren't they holding him to the same standard? Why was it okay for these publications? Why was it okay for these politicians to incite violence, to start wars that have caused untold suffering and get away with it? Where is the consistency? Where is it? By your logic, they should never be allowed to speak again in public, right? Like you're saying with Trump now. Where is it? There is none, because they're full of shit. They don't care. They don't give a crap. You can lie, you can start fucking wars, you can start fascist coups, support coups in other countries, you can murder people, you can fucking drop bombs on them. It doesn't matter. This whole thing now with the Capitol last week, they are using it to usher in a new war of terror, to usher in new expansions of the surveillance state. And we saw it when they were clamping down on, anyone saying things about Hunter Biden, locking the New York Post's Twitter account. Glenn Greenwald even ended up resigning from The Intercept because the editors wouldn't let him publish it. I mean, just obscene, right? And then now they're going even further. It's like, oh, we're going to get rid of Trump and, pass new domestic terror laws and comparing it to Pearl Harbor. I mean, this is... we've seen this fucking movie before. I mean, Christ. Even the Mexican president, Obrador, and the German chancellor, Angela Merkel, they were questioning this ban about Trump. This is what Angela Merkel said. She said, a spokesman said for her on Twitter. So the fundamental right of freedom of expression can be interfered with, but along the lines of the law and within the framework defined by the lawmakers, not according to the decision of the management of social media platforms. Okay? And they said here as well, still, the German government is convinced that social network operators bear a very high level of responsibility for ensuring that political communication is not poisoned by hatred, by lies, by incitement to violence. And I want to point something out here, why this is significant, because when you look at the laws surrounding, speech in Germany and Austria, especially after World War II, right? You go to jail if you say anything Nazi, right? You go to jail for that. So they have very clear, very strict measures and restrictions on what exactly you can say. Okay? It's not like the US. You can't walk outside with a fucking swastika. No, that's not allowed. You go to jail. Okay? So if they're coming out and telling you, like, this scumbag, this orange clown Donald Trump, at least do it within the government, but don't let a bunch of tech billionaires in Silicon Valley do this for you. And again, we go back to the debate now of, publisher versus platform, because these companies in Silicon Valley, Facebook, Google, YouTube, which is, under Google and Alphabet, Twitter, they're getting away with both, right? They want to have their cake and eat it too. So they've grown so big that, they're clearly the modern equivalent of, in Hyde Park, you have this place where you can go and just talk, right? I mean, it's like, this is where public discourse takes place in the 21st century, right? This is where political discourse takes place. This is where everything, news takes place. This is the arena in which the majority of public discourse unfolds in 2021. At the same time, however, they're making editorial decisions now. Like they're deciding, we want to moderate the content, and we want to pick and choose what we like, what we don't like, what we're going to allow. And they're not even consistent with it, right? Which was my main point, that when Trump was inciting violence, when he was being racist, when he was bragging about murdering General Soleimani, they didn't give a fuck. How is that even consistent? So they're even within their own behavior, within their own so-called ideals, they're not applying them consistently. This is bullshit. And they're targeting leftists too. And you think that, it's just Trump for now. No, it's not. And it hasn't even been in the past. They've never just gone after right-wingers. Lots of lefty outlets, anti-imperialist outlets, adversarial towards the United States have been targeted. This is an issue. And of course, they're complicit with the government. So I think I've made myself quite clear. And, it's, I'll add one last point. I'll add one very last point. Again, as much as Trump is a piece of shit, and I hate him for what he's done to my country, there's breadlines forming in Syria because of this motherfucker, and Obama before him. But, me as a journalist, I want to know what the motherfucker is saying. I mean, I have to know because he's your head of state. And unfortunately, the United States is a global superpower and they meddle in everyone's politics. So, I have to cover them. And I don't know what the fucker is saying. Where do I go to know what he is saying right now? I have no clue. Actually, he has a separate account for the POTUS, right, President of the United States. And I think they started limiting his tweets on that, but that account is still up. But he has not made any public statements since, right? I mean, again, I'm not dying to hear from the fucker, but as a head of state, I think it's important. And you, being Americans, most of my audience are Americans, I think you should also be concerned that you don't know what your president is saying. Yeah, that's an issue. But anyway, he will not be missed. We can say that at least. He will not be missed. My primary concern here is that these big tech companies, they have grown so big, and they are just arbitrarily, deplatforming people, including leftists. And we know for a fact, Glenn Greenwald, Edward Snowden sacrificed his everything. I mean, he can probably never go back to the US to prove to us that these companies are spying on us. They're collecting our data. We don't know what the fuck they're even doing with it. And you need to take that into consideration. Stop putting blind faith in them. This is stupid. It's lunacy. There you go. Watch out for the next couple of years. Watch out for Biden. Democrats, they have their authoritarian strain. Make no mistake. When Obama took office, he expanded everything the NSA was doing.